Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Linglestown Road Giant. We're honored to have you here today. My name is Nicholas Bertram. I'm president for the Giant Company, second largest employer, private employer inside of the Commonwealth, founded here in 1923. So it's always an honor to have the governor with us. You know, as the coronavirus pandemic continues, we're very grateful for the nearly 30,000 teammates inside of Giant here inside of Pennsylvania that have been at the forefront of this and trying to take care of communities, trying to take care of each other, and just do the right thing all along the way. They've always been essential in our eyes, but it's been encouraging to see everyone else see how essential they are to the community. Indeed, everyone does need and deserves to be able to eat. And so I'm honored to be here today on behalf of all of them and also on behalf of the company to welcome Governor Wolf and Deputy Secretary Kilco to announce a grant funding to help employers provide hazard pay to employees in life-sustaining occupations during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, in reviewing the CARES Act, there's no debating the benefits that it offers both workers and businesses. And we recognize, you know, as an employer, the role that we play in Pennsylvania's economy and the impact that our decisions have on its overall health. So as a company that's been fortunate enough to be able to continuously operate throughout the pandemic, albeit in a very modified way, if you've shopped, it definitely feels and looks different right now. We purposely decided to forego applying for the funding so that we can allow essential businesses facing greater financial need the opportunity to receive that funding. So on behalf of the Giant Company, I want to thank Governor Wolf and Deputy Secretary Kilco and the leadership and support that you've given throughout this extremely difficult time in recognizing the role essential workers play in the health and well-being of communities across the Commonwealth. I'm grateful personally for the ongoing support and partnership as we all weather this pandemic together. And with that, it's my great pleasure to welcome our Commonwealth's leader, Governor Tom Wolf.
So thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate that nice introduction, and thank you all for being here. And it is a real honor for me to be here with one of Pennsylvania's largest. You are the largest, or one of the number two largest, second largest employer in Pennsylvania. But I think what I want to do here, and what Carol wants to do, is say thank you to the people who have been at the heart of our ability to make it through this pandemic. The folks who work in places like Giant and have worked here through this pandemic have actually been putting their lives on the line for us. They work in hospitals in addition to places like Giant. They work in assisted living facilities. They work in urgent care facilities and centers. They work in grocery stores and convenience stores. They work in farms, food processing plants. They drive buses, they drive trucks, they drive ambulances, and they interact with the public, and that is unavoidable in all of these jobs. And with COVID-19, that has brought increased risks, obviously, to those interactions with the public. These Pennsylvanians deserve to be paid for the risks that they're taking for all of us. That's really important. So today I'm going to be announcing, and Carol, we're announcing that the General Assembly and I have taken $50 million from CARES Act funding, and we're directing that to provide hazard pay to the folks who do the things that we need them to do to keep us all alive. This funding is going to provide eligible employees with up to $3 an hour for all of those making less than $20 an hour or less, or a $1,200 total pay increase over the upcoming 10-week period. This funding is going to be directed to employees, but it's going to run through the employers, and the Department of Community and Economic Development will be accepting applications from these employers, the businesses, healthcare systems, nonprofits, transportation organizations, and economic development corporations who are working on behalf of a group of businesses or healthcare nonprofits. We will work to distribute this funding to these groups quickly so that we can get it into the hands of employees as quickly as possible. This hazard pay is going to help these hardworking employees offset costs related to working through the COVID-19 pandemics, the expenses such as buying masks, taking alternative forms of transportation, and finding childcare. More importantly, it's going to serve as a thank you. A thank you from the people of Pennsylvania, 13 million Pennsylvanians, from all of us to those who worked on the front lines, who took these risks, and who we sometimes, I think, took for granted throughout this pandemic. These Pennsylvanians have kept our economy going, and they've kept food on our tables, and they've kept us safe. And they deserve our gratitude. And the hope is that this $50 million will be a partial show of that gratitude. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Carol to come and talk about this a little more. Carol?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really my great pleasure to be here. I'm very proud to join Governor Wolf and Nicholas Bertram today to announce this critical new funding that the Commonwealth is making available to our employers for their employees. Over the past several months, all of you know we've been asking a lot of Pennsylvanians. We've been asking them to stay home more, limit the amount of time they're outside of their homes. We've been asking them to wear masks. We've been asking them to social distance from others. We've also asked an awful lot, as the governor already said, of our frontline workers, many of them that I think, and as we have gone through this time together, we've realized that some we never thought that were frontline workers truly are, and without them we would not have what we have today going through this pandemic. We've asked our frontline workers to continue working as safely as possible, do what they could do to be safe, but to continue the service to their communities across the Commonwealth. So many of those courageous Pennsylvanians answered the call. Our hospital workers, our first responders, they put their protective gear and helped save lives. Our transit workers provided transportation for many of our employees to be able to get to those jobs and provide the critical services that we needed for our citizens. Our child care providers, they were looking after the children of all of our essential workers. And manufacturers, food processors who continued to go to work and ensure that the critical supply chain remained intact. And so many more frontline workers in all of our life-sustaining industries really did the same. So now it's imperative, and we must be able to show our appreciation for their sacrifices. The COVID-19 Hazard Pay Grant Program, administered by the Department of Community and Economic Development, DCED, will help provide extra income to employees in eligible industries. As the governor mentioned, it's up to $1,200 can be provided to employees who make less than the $20 an hour. This will be provided in the form of $3 an hour per hour pay increase over a 10-week period. We encourage all eligible employers to please apply for this grant, as it serves to yet be another tool in the toolbox to help thank our frontline workers. Applications will only be accepted through July 31st. It's a very short time frame, but we need to get this money on the street as quickly as we possibly can. The applications, we will start accepting them today. In fact, as we speak, it is on our website, dced.pa.gov. You can get all the information as an employer that you need to apply. You look around here and you see many people out shopping as we move through the different phases, and now in the green phase, a lot of us are getting out more, going to the grocery store and other different things that we do in our normal daily lives. So we want to thank those that are working, and there's more people out there. So it's still critical that we mention and we look to the hazard to the essential workers and are able to provide this grant program for them. So now I'll turn the podium back over to Governor Wolf for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Carol. Any questions?
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
So I have a question, a little off topic. Back to yesterday with the bar and restaurant restrictions
Yes.
to 25% indoor capacity. So the Department of Health says, we talked to them today, They say that they don't have an exact number of cases that contributed or are presumed to be from bars and restaurants across the state. Their quote was, "For the purposes of the work we are trying to do, we do not currently systematically compile information such as how many cases in Pennsylvania originated from bars, restaurants, or churches in all parts of the state." So how do we know definitely or definitively that they're the reason for the spike? And do you think the state should start maybe collecting this data so the public can see why these restrictions are necessary?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number either, but I know that that's where the concentration of cases came from. So I just don't have the exact number. If that's something that you think is important, we could sure get it. But the point is that with what we know, that's where we saw the outbreak. That's where people were congregating together. That's where they were in close contact, and that's a problem with this virus. So we put all the evidence we had together and said that seems to be the source, one of the sources of the problem.
Other states are, I know Michigan, for example, was able to trace back an outbreak to a bar in one county specifically. It doesn't appear that Pennsylvania is doing that. So
I think, Beth, let's follow up on that. That would surprise me. Yeah. Yeah, Charlie.
On the hazard pay program announced here today, I was just curious. There have been a number of companies that have done this already, and I mean, I can think of a variety of companies from convenience stores to groceries to maybe some of the big distribution firms. And I'm curious if they had done this already for a temporary period, would those companies be allowed to apply for this grant to extend their program?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, some of them have done this, and some of the companies that have done this have actually suspended the program. This is one of the reasons why we're not doing this as a backward-looking thing, because, to your point, some companies have. Some companies have not. What we want to do is actually focus on the employees and make sure that they're being taken care of at this time. As Nick said, you're not taking the money. Right. So, some companies have actually recognized that this is a need. Some companies have recognized it and have suspended the program. Some companies haven't done it at all. We want to make sure that employees are who deserve this, who have served on the front lines, who have put themselves at risk, and in some cases taken on extra expenses, get some recompense for that.
Just to make sure I'm clear on that, then, it sounds like what you're saying is any company could apply for
any company
a forward-looking.
Any company in these categories that have frontline workers who put themselves at risk. That's right.
Whether they've done it on their own in the past or not.
Yes.
They could apply here.
I think that's right. Is that right, Carol? It's if a company has been doing this in the past, they still can qualify for this in the future.
Yes, they would. Within the industries that are in the guidelines.
Again, keep in mind it's $3 an hour for employees making up to $20 an hour, the $1,200 maximum. That's basically taking folks to $3 an hour for 10 weeks for a 40-hour week. Yeah, Dennis.
Getting back to yesterday's enhanced mitigation, two-part question. One, do you have a sense, or are you aware of the pain that has caused some smaller businesses?
Yes.
And B, what do you say to the legislature that says that you're once again acting without really consulting them or including them or being transparent with them?
Okay. First of all, as I said yesterday, I recognize that any decision, I think Carol said this too, every decision we make in this pandemic, it's not a choice between, a good alternative or a bad alternative. It's which alternative is less bad. When we look at a place like Florida, and what impact does that have on small businesses, especially restaurants and bars? That's not good. And they basically let things burn to the point where they've now had to act. And I'm not sure what Florida has done in relationship to bars, but customers are just not showing up. That's not a good situation. That would not be a good situation. Seems to me a better situation, not a good situation, but a better situation, a less bad situation, would be to shut bars down, make sure this happens. We get our arms around this quickly so that we can get back to opening things back up. We cannot have a Florida situation, and so that's the case. Second thing is in terms of dealing with the legislature, before I announced this yesterday afternoon, and that morning I met with legislative leaders in both parties throughout the day. So, I'm sure there were some legislators who didn't get the message, but I did work with them.
I have one other from our York reporter. With the new guidelines from the Department of Health, how is it safe for places like Hershey Park to open, but not for places like the York Expo Center? The fairgrounds does have several acres of land, as do amusement parks, so why can't the fairgrounds hold events?
Right. I mean, that's a fair question. And I think one of the things we need to look at, and we talked about this yesterday, is we need to look at amusement parks and how do we make sure people are safe. But throughout this, you can, and that's great, look at specific things. How about this? How about that? And I'm sure there are things that we've overlooked. Overall, what we're trying to do is keep people safe. We're trying to make sure that we act decisively and on a timely basis so that when we get to the fall, we get to school opening 4 to 6 weeks from now, that we can do that. And we're not going to be able to do that if we don't make people feel safe. So, yeah, there are things that maybe we overlooked and maybe we should revisit, like amusement parks. Maybe there are things that we could do differently, but we're trying to act in as focused a manner as we can in a way that keeps people safe. I mean, again, keep in mind, Florida, that's not going to be good for anybody. And anything we can do to avoid going through the fire that Florida or Arizona or Texas is going through, overwhelming their healthcare systems, making people just feel unsafe, not confident that they can go anywhere outside the home, that would be a bad thing for our economy. So let's try to not get to that point. That's what I'm trying to do. Have we made some mistakes in doing this? Probably. But I think we in general are trying to do the right thing and trying to give people the confidence that we are, in fact, doing the right thing.
I had one other question on the grant program. And just, again, having thought about the fact that companies like Giant have already done it, there may be people out there that would think, with so many needs because of the pandemic, why is government getting into this? Because isn't it really the private sector's job to pay its employees, and isn't it on them to do this if they feel that they value their employees enough to do it? What can you tell me a little bit about your thought process about why the government should even get into this when there are other needs like helping school districts with budgets or helping the state with its budget?
Yeah, I think we should do all those things. But I think we ought to do this also. And that is why we have the $20 maximum. I mean, there's some companies that already pay more than that. There's some companies that have done this, you're right, but there's some companies that have not. And again, this is targeted to employees, and we want to make sure that employees are getting paid for what they. I mean, it might be the fact, you could argue the fact that $20 is not enough to compensate someone who puts her life on the line here. And I think that you can make a valid argument. We're trying to show our gratitude of Pennsylvania with money that comes through the CARES Act funding. In addition to all the other things that we're doing, here's $50 million we're setting aside to make sure that we do something for the employees. Yes.
On to the CARES Act funding as well, Lebanon County today releasing a letter to you on your decision to withhold or to block the money to them, saying close to $13 million desperately needed to help our business community continue to recover and survive the ongoing restrictions. Just your thoughts on that decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think maybe you asked or somebody asked me the question months ago when they were saying, no, we're not going to abide by the restrictions. We're going to make our own rules and regulations. And I said, that's okay. Then don't come and say you want something from the state when you haven't followed the rules. There are consequences. These are the consequences. I think I'm being consistent here.
There's only one county that hasn't gotten that funding, at least according to them, and that would be Lebanon County.
And that was only one county that actually went through with the threat. I mean, other counties made the threat, but they actually didn't go through with it.
So you're making no bones about the fact that is a degree of retribution for the fact that they did
It's
that.
not retribution. It's just like they made the decision. I didn't make it. They made the decision and said, here's the consequence if you want to do this. Most of the other places said, no, we don't. We're backing down. They didn't. Okay.
But there's 2 out of 3 commissioners that made that decision, and that funding affects the entire county.
That's right. That was the commissioners that the majority of people elected in Lebanon County. They represent them. I'd think twice about re-electing them. Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
I just have 2 questions. One, since this CARES Act funding is supposed to be for employees, why can't employees apply for it? Why only businesses?
Carol, maybe you want to answer that question. We wanted to go to the employees. I think we're trying to do this in a way that gets to the employees as quickly as possible, and we think that the employers applying for it is the right channel to do it. I think that's the answer.
Initially, we started to think about it in that direction, going through have employees, but when we looked at the total number of employees, it's like 46,000 that could benefit from this, that the infrastructure that we had in place, we really didn't think that we would be able to support that and get the money out in a timely fashion. So our decision was to move the money through the employers and get that to the employees that way. That's right.
What happens if an employer doesn't apply and an employee wants it?
Well, if the employer doesn't apply, and there's no extra money that will be going to that employee. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, I guess, defending. Thank you very much. Sure.
I just wanted to. One of my colleagues is doing a story also on the impact of yesterday's announcement, and she is actually looking at wineries in the state and the impact on wine tasting rooms that they might operate, that sort of thing. I don't know if you would know off the top of your head, but any idea about how those new restrictions would play out for wine tasting rooms run by PA wineries?
No, I mean, the rule is you have to serve a meal with the alcohol. So if you can do that, then you can go ahead and do what you were doing. If it's just to have a drink, you can't. And we're trying to do that for a fairly short time so that we can, as I said to Dennis, get back to normal as quickly as possible. If we do nothing, we're going to be overwhelmed by this disease, and that's going to be a bad thing for all corners of the economy. We're trying to shut this down in a short, focused way so that all of us can get back to work as quickly as possible. If we don't do something, we're going to be overwhelmed.
I think the idea, though, is that wineries may not see themselves as a bar in that sense, but they may not also serve food in the sense of a...
Yeah, we're standing by the rules. Okay, thanks very much.